The mic seems to be working. Okay, so we are live. Hi, everyone. Let me bring myself into the meeting as well. There I am. Hi. Hi, folks. Just new format here. We are putting things together, so there will be glitches along the way. Thank you for joining us. I am your host, your Heavenly Father, Kevin Williams, and we will be taking a look this evening at the Republican pre-action to the hearings that we saw this morning with the 4 brave police officers who suffered health and mental injury from the January 6th insurrection. We will see, I'm sure, I haven't watched this, but I am almost positive that Kevin McCarthy and his band of scallywags, I see Scalise there, Stefanik, the other Jim Banks, we'll see what they have to say. I'm almost positive they will be blaming Nancy Pelosi. I know that Stefanik does, so let's watch that together. Let's see. Hi, Allison. Hi, Stephanie. Yeah, I have to put your skate blades onto my skates very soon, Stephanie, because my old ones are. I've been nursing them, but I have to find your skate blades. They're packed in the garage because I got them just as the move happened. So anyway, that's all personal information aside. Welcome aboard the live stream. This is what we do. We take a look at current events. We take a look at the current events of the day, and we dissect them for you and with you. If you'd like to chat along, we'd love that to happen. Just chat on whatever format you're watching it in, if you're on YouTube or Twitters or whatever. Just say something, and it'll appear in that little chat window over there on the left-hand side of your screen. Let's get going with this. Let me cue this up. There's got to be a beginning to it somewhere. This is Kevin McCarthy. By the way, nobody else ever comments on this, but Kevin McCarthy is not good at Englishing. At all. The things he says, they don't make any sense. And he railroads through them. But nobody ever points it out. Kevin McCarthy can't speak. We're being picked up here, yeah? You guys can hear me, obviously. Hello, everyone. Skate blades. So, okay, yeah, you guys can hear me. The Google Meets are telling me that my microphone is turned off. I'll just turn it on Google Meets and see if everybody's happy. You guys still hear me? And yeah, looks like I'm still there. Okay, good. Let me pump that up a little bit. We'll adjust their volume accordingly as well. Here's Kevin McCarthy making attempts at English. Guarantee you that he will make multiple mistakes with his wordings in the first couple of minutes here.
Thank you all for coming.
So far, so good.
I first want to start by expressing my condolences to Deputy Philip Campus.
Deputy? Who's Deputy? Yeah, we're expressing our condolences to Deputy Philip somebody. Actually, this is Philip Campus, I believe, who recently lost his life in the line of duty. So we will not be making fun of that, but we will certainly be making fun of what Kevin McCarthy says. Because, again, Kevin McCarthy can't speak English.
I first want to start by expressing my condolences to Deputy Philip Campus, an officer who was selfishly serving his community in...
He was selfishly serving his community. Selfishly. Not selflessly, selfishly. He says it. Listen.
I first want to start by expressing my condolences to Deputy Philip Campus, an officer who was selfishly serving his community in Kern County.
Do you see? The very first thing he says, it's not Englishing. Nobody calls him on it.
Who was killed in the line of duty on Sunday. He is a...
3 Capitol Hill officers are dead as a result of the 1-6 riot. 1, Brian Sicknick, died at the hospital. 2 more committed suicide within the week. I don't know that we'll hear about them today. All officers killed in the line of duty, all of them. Tragedy.
A father, a husband, a Kern County Sheriff officer, and a former Marine. 3 others were shot in the standoff as well. Our prayers are with his family and those who were wounded as they continue to break through this.
Break through this? How do you break through someone's death? A breakthrough is what the Delta virus does. You don't break through a death in your family. Thanks for your prayers. We're really hoping to break through this situation. We shall triumph over Dad's death. Thanks a lot, Kevin McCarthy. Again, not good with the Englishing at all.
Each of us are indebted to our brave Capitol Police officers who come every day to this house prepared to defend us. On January 6th, these brave officers were put into a vulnerable and impossible position because of the leadership at the top has failed. December 14th, the leadership knew there was a problem. Even prior to that, Inspector General report told us there was failed.
The Inspector General report, the Inspector General report, a Inspector General, either one's fine.
Leadership at the top of the police for the training. Rodney Davis will speak in a moment of a bill that he had to make sure the structure of the Capitol Police would change. We had many failures within the leadership. You had a chair of House Administration with responsibility that did not come to the Capitol.
What? No, you had a chair of... No, that's not English. Moving on.
For more
congratulations, Joanna, on being first.
More than 6 months. First time showing back up on January 3rd to vote for the Speaker.
What? Again, not English. Let's just listen to that entire sentence.
For the Capitol would change. We had many failures within the leadership.
Yeah.
You had a chair of House Administration with responsibility that did not come to the Capitol for more than 6 months. First time showing back up on January 3rd to vote for the Speaker.
Okay. He's talking about the chairman being absent because of COVID.
No hearings about the IG report. No movement of Rodney Davis's bill.
It's awkward, but I'm going to classify it as English.
There's questions into the...
Where's the whistleblower?
Leadership within the structure of the Speaker's office, where they denied the ability to bring the National Guard here. We now have a committee that all of America wants to know the answers to. Why were we ill-prepared for that day, and how can we make sure that it will never happen again?
Why were you riding your bike and got hit by that car? Why were you not wearing a chainmail suit on your bike? Why not? You knew there was traffic. You knew there were going to be cars. You've known that since December 14th.
But unfortunately, Speaker Pelosi will only pick on people onto the committee that will ask the questions she wants asked. That becomes a failed committee and a failed report, a sham that no one can believe. If you want the true answers, do not be afraid of the questions that will get asked.
Great. Well, Pelosi said you can have 5 people on the committee. You offered 5. She said, okay, 2 of those don't work. You can still have 3 people on the committee. And you said, no, we're leaving. We're not going to ask the questions. These questions that are so important that need to be asked for the American people because chairman of committees showing back up. So important, but you're just not going to participate. Sorry. I can't ask questions if I'm not there. You can't, that's their showing time. Up.
And drive the evidence to wherever it comes forward. We owe it to the officers.
I don't know what that means. Drive the evidence to wherever it comes forward. You need to be wearing a bike helmet in that case if you're driving evidence around, because if you get hit by evidence, woo!
We owe it to the nation.
Oh, wait, you're Republican. There'll be no consequences.
To have an open and fair debate with all questions being asked. Again,
I don't know why it's a debate. It's a committee, not a debate.
The Republicans want to participate with the Republicans that are able to be on the committee, that have jurisdiction, have the knowledge, and the ability to ask the tough questions that can get the right answers.
And are going to be called as witnesses. Jim Jordan is a witness. He spoke with Trump that day. He will be called as a witness. You can't be called as a witness and sit on the committee. That's conflict of interest.
It's unfortunate we start with a committee chair who will tell you everything's on the table except the Speaker's office.
God, I would kill for my air conditioning right now. Up in the showing up driving to the air. If the driving of the air could...
How can you ever get to the bottom of the questions? How can you ever get to the solutions to make sure the Capitol is never put in this position again? From December 14th, they knew. The last time there was a break in the line was during the...
From December 14th, they knew that there were going to be 10,000 Trump supporters there storming the Capitol. That's his contention here.
Kavanaugh hearings. Why weren't...
Because IG report said so.
Changes made then? Why weren't action taken after the IG report?
What?
Last time there was a break in the line was during the Kavanaugh hearings. Why weren't changes made then? Why weren't action taken after the IG report?
Why weren't action taken after the IG... Actions! Why weren't actions, plural? See what I'm saying? Nobody ever points this out. I cannot listen to this human being. If he was like married to my sister, I would avoid Thanksgiving. Just based on what is it? It's
a lot of questions that could get asked today to make sure these officers will never be put in this position. January 6th should have never happened.
So we should have just gone January 4th, 5th, and then 7th?
We should have prepared and be prepared for the officers. Make sure they had the training and the equipment that they needed.
Yeah, always.
With that, I'd like to call up our whip, Steve Scalise.
Woo!
Thank you, Kevin. And
you're welcome. That, by the way, is the correct Englishing there. He is the whip.
I share those same sentiments. Our prayers go out to so many law enforcement officers who lost their lives in the last year. And every day, we thank those Capitol Police officers who risk their lives to keep us safe and to keep this Capitol hopefully open again to tourists who can come.
Okay, so he made a mistake. He caught himself and he worked it in. Okay, so Steve Scalise knows how to English. Greg Gutfeld today summed up the entire 9/11, January 6th riot as politicians not being able to do their job for a couple of hours.
To the Capitol to see their government in action. But what we're here...
There's a lot of government in action going on.
Here to talk about today is Speaker Pelosi's constant attempt to cover up facts that she doesn't want out there. You know, for weeks...
Okay, but she offered to have 5 of you on the committee. And you turned it down. You could have done all kinds of fact uncovering. There were going to be subpoenas. There were going to be questions and answers. But you guys don't want to be part of the committee.
Now, Jim Jordan and Jim Banks have been raising some very tough questions. Questions that need to be answered.
Questions that were asked in the committee hearing today. The officers expressly said that changes need to happen, that they need more training, that they need more equipment, etc. That was brought up in today's meeting. But if Georgian, never mind.
About what?
It's a Russian asset. Well, Russian asset.
Why Speaker Pelosi didn't make sure that Capitol Police had all the tools they needed to be prepared for that day. Now, maybe because they were raising those questions, they got canceled by this new cancel culture that we see moving throughout the country, led by Speaker Pelosi and a lot of our socialist allies here in Congress, where they want to shut out voices that raise tough questions that they don't want.
That raise stupid questions and blame the Biden administration that wasn't even in charge at the time. Didn't exist yet.
To be asked or answered. And yet, they were starting to raise those questions about why the Capitol Police didn't have the tools they needed. What kind of intelligence?
Okay, so they were starting to raise those questions. What? Okay.
Did Speaker Pelosi get early off, weeks in advance, as Leader McCarthy talked about, that gave telltale signals that could have prevented what happened on January 6th? But Speaker Pelosi said that she doesn't want those questions asked, so she kicked them off the committee. She took...
No, she didn't say that. She's never said she doesn't want certain questions asked. Jim Jordan is a fact witness.
An unprecedented step of refusing to allow members to be appointed by the minority leader to a select committee. Had never...
Right, and you guys had the opportunity to have an impartial, almost even Democrats and Republicans special committee. And the Senate GOP killed it. So that's your party, dude. That's you guys. Nancy Pelosi acquiesced to every demand that Kevin McCarthy had. You guys were going to have subpoena power veto, and that's huge for a minority. That's insane. I never would have agreed to that. But I'm betting that Nancy knew that the Senate was going to kill it anyway. Mitch McConnell called in personal favors to kill the committee. And now this is what you're left with. It was going to happen, and you should have known that. You guys were playing one-dimensional chess, and you were using 2 bottle caps and a shoelace.
Before happened in the history of Congress. And so as we see these kind of actions taken by Speaker Pelosi to cover up the facts that she doesn't want out there, it has completely debased the legitimacy of this commission, because clearly they're not searching for the truth.
It was a delegitimize.
They're searching to get a narrative out that Speaker Pelosi has already written. And anybody that's going to ask questions that go against that, she just has them removed.
I think history's done a lot of writing in this particular. There's video of it. I broadcast it for 16 hours straight that day. A lot of stuff happened that day. So I don't know that Nancy's necessarily writing the history on this.
Moved so that they can't bring those questions up. That's not an investigative panel. People know that. We've seen other bodies. The Senate's done some investigative work. The Department of Justice has done some investigative work. And it should be about following the facts, not about trying to cover up facts that tell a story differently than the one she maybe has already had written, and she just wants to now get others to back it up.
By the way, Trump once claimed that he saw Steve Scalise get shot at the baseball game. And it's just one of those many, many Trump things. You would, if this was Joe Biden making that error, he wasn't there, by the way, at the baseball practice. Trump doesn't hang out at Wednesday morning baseball practices. But he did claim that he saw the shooting happen. And no one remembers that. Nobody even commented on it. Because it's just one of the deluge. It's a single drop in a flood of a dam breaking. And the dam is just all of us going, damn, that man is an idiot. How did he get elected?
So it's unfortunate that she's done it, because clearly it can't be about people who voted against certifying electors, because she appointed members herself who voted against certifying electors on January 6th. Against them on January 6th of 2005. Some of her own members who objected on January 6th of 2017. So clearly that's not what it's about.
Yeah, she seats all of the Congress people, even you guys. She seats you.
It's probably...
She's Speaker of the House.
Probably more about some of the tough questions that were already being raised by Jim Jordan and Jim Banks. And that's a shame, because those questions need to be asked and answered as well. And now they're not.
Okay, well, you got 3 other guys there that can answer those questions. You got 3 other white men who are perfectly capable of answering and asking, asking, I guess, not answering. They're obviously not capable of answering. You got 3 other white guys ready to go. Complete permission. So have a show up tomorrow, the next day, whenever the next committee meeting is. Does anybody know when the next committee meeting is?
Because of the cover-up that Speaker Pelosi's continued to do. We see this with COVID. She won't hold a hearing on the origins of COVID. Too often we've seen this pattern by Speaker Pelosi of trying to cover up a narrative.
Well, how about we let the investigators do their job?
That she doesn't want out there.
Then you can have hearings. We don't know anything at this point.
When we should be trying to get all of the facts. Now to come up next is our conference chair, Elise Stefanik.
Oh, good.
There is a reason that Nancy Pelosi is the most disliked elected official in America. She always puts her own partisan politics over what's best for the American people. She's an authoritarian who has broken the people's house. She is a lame
People's House is still functional, by the way. It's not broken. I just watched it all day.
duck speaker, and everyone.
No such thing as a lame duck speaker. That is not a thing. That is something the Republicans have made up in the last couple of weeks. It's every speaker would be a lame duck speaker immediately upon taking the chair. Doesn't happen.
Knows it. The reason why Nancy Pelosi is refusing
And what?
to seat
Everyone knows
who
it?
has broken the people's house. She is a lame duck speaker, and everyone knows it.
I hate it when people say everyone knows something that nobody knows, because it's not a thing, Elise. By the way, you're a lame duck congressperson right now. By that definition, everybody there is a lame duck. I'm a lame duck Kevin.
The reason why Nancy Pelosi is refusing to seat accomplished and well-respected hardworking Republicans like Jim Jordan and Jim Banks is because she doesn't want the American people to know the truth or
And he's a fact witness.
learn the facts.
Although he's a fact witness. So he'll be called to testify. Okay.
She doesn't want a fair or bipartisan investigation. She wants a political one. It is a fact that in December of 2020,
It is a bipartisan. There are Republicans on the committee. There should have been more. You guys refused to participate.
Nancy Pelosi was made aware of potential security threats to the Capitol, and she failed to act. It is a fact that the U.S. Capitol Police raised concerns, and rather
Not a fact, by the way. We don't know that.
than providing them with the support and resources they needed and they deserved, she prioritized her partisan political optics
Not a fact. We don't know that.
over their safety. The American people deserve to know the truth that Nancy Pelosi bears responsibility as Speaker of the House for the tragedy that occurred on January 6th.
That is not the case. You don't blame the rape victim. The rapist is the problem. Or the guy who had a big speech and said, head down there and rape everybody.
And it was only after Republicans started asking these important questions that she refused to seat them. House Republicans will continue to follow the truth and the facts and support our law enforcement officers to make sure this never happens again in the U.S. Capitol, the People's House. And I'm proud to turn it over to Mike.
So you'll be disavowing Trump then? Yeah, because he's the one who refuses to accept the results of the free and fair election, claiming nonsensically that there's fraud when there is no evidence of widespread fraud. But he's not the problem?
Colleague, very well-respected member, Jim Banks.
Thank you for telling us he's well respected. Like, how would we know otherwise? Certainly not by respecting him.
Today we will hear tragic stories by Capitol Police officers.
Yes, we did.
Tragic events that should have never happened
Yeah.
at this Capitol building on January 6th.
Right.
Tragic events that happened on Speaker Nancy Pelosi's watch. It's
And spurred by Donald Trump, yes.
clear at this point that
I like this guy so far.
Nancy Pelosi has cherry-picked the members to serve on this committee. She's pre-written.
Oh, no. She didn't cherry pick them. See, because she was given a bowl of cherries by Kevin McCarthy. And one of the guys is a fact witness, so he can't do it. And you're an idiot, so you can't do it. You blamed it on Jim Biden, President Jim Biden, before Jim Biden was Jim Biden. There's too many Jims. You blamed it on Joey Biden before Joe Biden was president.
Written a narrative. Only members who will stick to her talking points are allowed to serve on this committee.
No, 3 other Republicans that Kevin McCarthy, but they don't have to stick to the talking points. They were offered the position.
If this is truly a fact-finding mission to make sure that January 6th never happens again, this isn't what that looks like. Today, I want to repeat a call that I made last week to the chairman of this committee to bring before this committee today on this panel the head of the Capitol Police Union, who told many of us last week and has said publicly and privately that on January 6th, the rank and file members of the Capitol Police Department, the heroes that make up, the men and women, the heroes that make up the Capitol Police Department, they were not prepared for what happened on January 6th in spite of intelligence reports that date back 3 weeks before that day. They weren't equipped on January 6th with the proper equipment that they needed to handle what happened that day. And they weren't trained for what was going to happen that day. As the Senate investigation report, a bipartisan report, already identified, there was a systemic breakdown of security, a lack of leadership at the very top of the United States Capitol Police who report and who Nancy Pelosi is ultimately responsible for that lack of leadership. That's where this committee should go if it's
Well, who's ultimately responsible for the rioters? Who's their leader?
serious about making sure that something like this never happens again. Bring the head of the United States Capitol Police Union to sit on the panel today to provide a different perspective than the cherry-picked narrative that Nancy Pelosi wants the American people to hear. I repeat that call. I hope that
Well, you know, it's too bad that Nancy Pelosi won't let any of you sit on the committee, because somebody, if they were on the committee, they could say, like, we should get the head of the police union in here. We could do that. It's just too bad that Nancy Pelosi blocked all 5 of your peoples.
Democrats will think better of what they've already rejected the head of the Capitol Police Union. I hope they think better of it. Bring him before the panel today. Give him a chance to testify before the American people.
That's an excellent question, Stephanie. If they were all unarmed, why would the Capitol Police need any more equipment?
Thank you.
Like more fencing?
Defer to Representative Jordan.
Okay, here we go.
Why don't the Democrats want to get to the truth?
They do.
Why don't they want to answer the fundamental question, which is, why wasn't there a better security posture on that day? Let me just read from a news account from February of this year. Pelosi's office had previously impressed upon the Sergeant of Arms, Paul Irving, that the National Guard was to remain off Capitol grounds. Irving told House administration the discussion centered around the, quote, optics. Why were the Democrats so concerned about the optics? Why were they?
Well, because the Capitol grounds were completely fenced off. They were barricaded with police officers to keep any sort of protest or peaceful protesters off the grounds. Unfortunately, Trump sent an entire rally down to the Capitol and told them to fight like hell. So Nancy didn't anticipate that happening.
They're so concerned about how it would look.
This is the President of the United States of America. No President of the United States of America has ever attacked the Capitol before. This is new ground here.
Because what happened last summer? It's all driven by what happened last summer, where Democrats normalized anarchy, normalized political violence, raised bail money for the very rioters and looters who destroyed small businesses, attacked innocent civilians, and maybe most importantly, attacked police officers. When you spend a year talking about defunding the police and actually defund the police, it's kind of hard to have more police here.
Well, Nancy Pelosi has never said to defund the police. She's never said that's a good idea, ever.
On January 6th.
You want to take it up with Kamir Shawant in Seattle? Whatever her name is? Yeah, go ahead. But Nancy Pelosi wasn't saying that.
Like they should have done.
Nancy Pelosi's condemned the riots many times. Joe Biden condemns violence of any kind.
That's the fundamental question. That's why this thing has turned into such a...
The fundamental question is who is responsible for the riots. Kevin McCarthy said the day of the riots that President Trump bears responsibility.
Political charade. The police officers who will testify today, and frankly all Capitol Hill police officers, deserve to have more help that day. But the Democrats couldn't do...
Then why did you vote against them getting the Congressional Medal of Honor?
...do it because of the political position they had taken all throughout last year. That's the fundamental question that won't be answered. That's why Republicans aren't serving on this committee. And now I want to yield to the ranking member.
No. Republicans are serving on the committee. There are 2 Republicans on the committee. There could be 5 more. You guys won't do it.
The House administration, Mr. Davis.
When Leader McCarthy asked me to be ranking member on the House Administration Committee in the last Congress, he told me to fix things around this Capitol, which is why, as he mentioned, we introduced the Capitol Police Advancement Act during the last Congress that would have increased transparency and accountability through semi-annual reports and addressing many of the issues that have been brought up for years in IG reports, GAO studies, and other different forms of communication with Congress. The Democrats chose not to advance our legislation to help our officers. And it's with great disappointment today that I don't get to question my friend Harry Dunn. And I don't get to talk to him about...
No. You could have. Nancy didn't say that you couldn't serve on the committee. Go serve on the committee. In fact, you're saying this before the committee meeting even started. You could have been there. You could have been sitting behind the desk, Rodney.
What he and heroes like David Bailey and Crystal Griner, officers that saved the lives of Steve and all of us on a baseball field a few years ago, we don't get to ask the questions that will lead to why there was not a better security posture here on the Capitol complex. Harry is a friend. Harry and I hugged each other when we saw each other in the Capitol after what happened on January 6th. Harry has been to my office to talk about these issues. He knows that all of us here want to address the institutional problems with the structure that is set up to fail. The structure here in the United States Capitol is that the chief of police cannot make a final security decision without going to political appointees that make up the Capitol Police Board, his or her bosses. They can't get the security posture where they think it is up to par before they have to go to political appointees. We've tried to fix this over the last few years, and the Democrats have stopped us every single step of the way. Now, if Speaker Pelosi thought that by vetoing Ranking Member Banks and Ranking Member Jordan from this committee that she would avoid the tough questions, well, she doesn't know the rest of us that well.
Okay, but you refuse to serve on the committee. So, are you showing up or not? Because I didn't see you there today.
And frankly, some of the questions that I think need to be asked...
It's just so patently ridiculous. You can be on the committee. Well, no. Okay, then we'll just have the committee meetings. Why won't you let me serve on the committee?
The Speaker, and I hope all of you that are in front of us today, asked these questions. On January 6th at 1:43, Speaker Pelosi was passed a note while in the Speaker's chair on the House floor, requesting permission to seek support from the National Guard from then Sergeant-at-Arms Paul Irving, who was appointed by the Speaker and then subsequently fired that day by the Speaker. This is an account that has been confirmed by the Speaker's office. Why was the Speaker's permission even needed? By this time, pipe bombs had already been found outside the RNC.
Why did we change things during the Trump administration so that the National Guard couldn't be called out by the local authorities? That it had to go to the Secretary of the Army? Why did we do that? Why did that cause a delay? It's an excellent question. Same question for why Nancy had to be handed a note if in fact that's what happened. Those are good questions. Those are questions you should ask on the committee, Rodney Davis. What's that? You didn't go. Well, this is awkward.
And the DNC and rioters had breached the steps. If Sergeant-at-Arms Irving felt he needed the Speaker's approval then, what were the instructions and conversations he had with the Speaker's office prior to January 6th? Former Capitol Police Chief Steve Sund has testified that Irving was concerned, as many have said, about the optics. And we know that the Speaker's office was calling the shots on all of their actions on January 6th. But we don't have the details leading up to those conversations leading up to the 6th, because under the Speaker's direction, the Sergeant-at-Arms has denied our House administration official request to preserve documents and communications. I will tell you the Capitol Police followed our ask and did provide that information. What are they hiding? What is the Speaker hiding? Unfortunately, I don't believe those questions are going to be asked by this committee.
Because you're not going to attend the committee, even though you've been invited to sit on the committee. Dude, you could be there asking the questions.
And the Speaker, as we've heard throughout this press conference, is tightly controlling every single question that is coming forth.
You could
be there! This is
be
the committee
there!
that's supposed to get to the bottom of what happened on January 6th. And as has been noted by my colleagues, the chair of this committee has left all of the questions that I just hope you ask the Speaker off the table. Don't let that happen. Now, I'd like to turn this over now to a good friend from North Dakota, Mr. Armstrong.
I think it's important to recognize what has happened with this committee, how we're moving forward, and why it's so important. taking Jim Banks and Jim Jordan off of this committee isn't just removing two members of the Republican conference. Jim Banks represents the largest caucus in the Republican conference. Jim Jordan is the ranking member on the Judiciary Committee. They represent millions of constituents across this country who feel like their voice has now been silenced. And so when we talk about making sure we know what happens and why it will never happen again, we also have to remember for the last 6 months, people haven't been able to come here because of it. For much of that time, we had National Guard soldiers on the ground. These grounds were protected by fencing and razor wire. This is more important than what we're doing here and what we're doing. We have to make sure that never happens again. We have to protect the people who work here. We have to protect the press who covers this place. We have to protect our law enforcement. We have to protect our staff. And we have to do it in a way where the American people still have access to the people's house. And you simply cannot do that with a partisan hearing by silencing the voices of millions of American voters. And that's exactly.
But you were offered a chance to sit on the committee, Kelly. But that's not silencing. Today you would have been given a 10-minute question and answer period. You could have talked. You could have made statements.
Exactly what happened.
So that's a half hour. You guys would have had a half an hour to spew whatever nonsense you wanted to spew.
And that's why we're so angry, frustrated, and upset right now. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Sheriff.
It's like they're 5-year-olds, you know? They're just throwing a tantrum.
Sheriff Nels.
Thank you. I said last week that I would put my 30 years of law enforcement experience, including 8 years as sheriff, to review the Senate report in detail. And I found some things that were alarming. Specifically as it relates to the intelligence the Capitol Police had in their possession the days and weeks leading up to January 6th. Intelligence that said there was a strong likelihood of violence, that violent extremist groups were sharing detailed maps of the Capitol tunnels and encouraging supporters to bring weapons to the Capitol. Capitol Police leadership had this intelligence in their possession and somehow were caught completely off guard. The Senate report highlights the intelligence failures, but doesn't speak specifically to who in the Capitol Police knew what and when. And we must answer those questions. In addition to...
Great, well then we'll see you tomorrow on the committee.
The intelligence failures, the Senate report highlights the clear delay of the National Guard in assisting the Capitol Police.
It is to whom, but he's doing fine so far, Kimchi.
I was alarmed to find that the Capitol Police Chief, the Chief of Police, doesn't have the authority to request National Guard support without approval of the Capitol Police Board. And the Capitol Police Board is made up of the House Sergeant at Arms and Senate Sergeant at Arms. Before the National Guard can be called, they both must agree. The House Sergeant at Arms answers to Nancy Pelosi.
Oh, okay, but they were called. The National Guard were called.
And it's been suggested the day of January 6th.
Hold on, it's been suggested.
He was waiting for Speaker Pelosi's approval before calling in the National Guard. It's interesting because the Sergeant at Arms, Paul Irving...
Okay, if that's the chain of command, that's the chain of command. And on the other side, it used to be that other people could make the decision to allow the National Guard to go there. Now it has to go all the way up the chain. That was changed during the Trump administration. Now, for some reason, the Secretary of the Army has to get involved, if not the Deputy Secretary.
Has been uncooperative with the committees. He won't share phone records. He won't turn over emails. What is he hiding? What is Speaker Pelosi hiding?
It's a good question. You should get on the committee and find out what.
Speaker Pelosi went the extra mile to hide the truth by taking the historic steps of rejecting two of the minority leaders' select committee picks, destroying any chance for bipartisanship. This committee is completely partisan.
Okay, but this committee is made up of Republicans and Democrats.
From top to bottom.
And you could have been on it, Troy. You turned it down.
Every member was chosen by Speaker Pelosi. And why? Because Speaker Pelosi...
No, you were chosen by Kevin McCarthy. And you won't do it.
Pelosi wants her...
This is just so fucking ridiculous.
her narrative and her outcome to prevail, and not the truth. The only so-called Republicans on the committee are on the committee to grandstand and attack.
Well, they're so-called Republicans because they're Republicans, and they have been longer than you have, my friend.
The former president because of their own personal vendettas. Those Pelosi Republicans aren't interested in the truth. They're interested in getting even. Today, Leader McCarthy whips.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. What are they getting even for? That Trump attacked the Capitol building? Is that what it is? I would like to get him on the committee and ask him a couple of questions.
Scalise and all
They should call them all in as fact witnesses, not just Jordan.
of us up here. However, we're interested in the truth. We're going to continue seeking it and following the evidence no matter where it leads.
Great.
Because we owe it to the American people to ensure this never, ever happens again. Thank you.
The end.
Thank you, Sheriff. As you see, on the committee today, they don't have any law enforcement. We asked for 5 members, just as every time.
Okay, but they... Okay, but they have 4 police officers sitting, being interviewed.
In every Congress to represent, to ask the questions. Never before in the history of Congress has a speaker taken the unprecedented move of denying the other party to a committee of who they
Unprecedented.
selected. It raises many questions.
It does.
The worst part of all of this, we want to make sure this never happens again. January 6th should have never happened. The Capitol Police should not have been...
The worst part of all of it is that you want to make sure it never happens again. No, that's the best part. Everybody wants it never to happen again, except Trump. Everybody. Again, Kevin McCarthy and English are not old friends.
been put in this position. They should have been able to have the resources, the training, the equipment. They shouldn't be locked in a bus away.
Shouldn't be locked in a bus away. Those words would make sense. You just have to... He's like English Lego.
And we should not have a sergeant of arms that waits to ask for a political answer when it comes for the need of reinforcements.
Word salad.
Especially when you knew for weeks in advance.
Dummy.
But how do you start a committee when a committee chair says everything's open except the Speaker's office? And then the Speaker denies who could be on the committee. Predetermined to report
What? That's not what anyone said.
that's probably already written. We want to get to the bottom of this. Take all the questions.
Okay, well then have the 3 guys serve on the committee and ask to put 2 other people that aren't a fact witness and an idiot.
Make sure the questions are answered and get to a solution. With that, I'll take some questions. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, good questions.
Show you all in different iterations.
I got like 6 minutes before I have to get out of here, so let's listen to some questions, kids.
Said that the speaker's trying to cover up what happened on January 6th, but she didn't say the election was stolen. She didn't call her supporters here to the Capitol. So in what role are you trying to cover up what the former president's role was on January 6th?
Nothing. We're not predetermining any questions. We'd like to be on the committee to ask them.
They're not predetermining any questions? Yes, they are. All this entire conference, they've been talking about questions that need to be asked. They're not predetermining any conclusions. I almost said collusions.
You've got a committee chair that questioned the election of George Bush. You've got a committee chair
Questioned. Past tense.
of this who was suing the president. You've got a committee chair of this who believes Republican senators are equal to terrorists and they should be on the terrorist watch list. You've got a member of Raskin
Some of them are.
who, before the president was even sworn in, said he should be impeached, who questioned the election before and objected to the electors there. You got an Adam Schiff who we know is playing nothing but politics.
Schiff. His name is Schiff, not Shift.
Lied to the American public that he had proof, took this country through an
Wasn't a lie. There's conclusive proof that there was collusion.
unbelievable false impeachment to find out that he lied to
It was a real impeachment. It happened.
us. And the idea that she thinks these predetermined people will protect her, I think it should start off with everybody should be able to ask the questions. Let's get to the bottom of this. This should never happen again.
Okay, you got 3 people there that could ask all the questions you want. You would have had a half an hour of time today.
When the Kavanaugh hearings took place, there was a break in the line of the Capitol Police. They are the majority party. Why didn't they take from that to be prepared for any other time coming forward? You got a House administration that oversees a great deal of this. You had a chairman of that committee that had not been to Washington since May. You had IG reports
okay,
that told you were ill-prepared, the Capitol Police. Why would you damage the...
You had an IG report that told you you were ill-prepared, the Capitol Police. Is that what IG report said? Is IG report a person? Does he think IG report is like... Ingrid Gertrude report. I'm Swedish.
Men and women that we've watched time and again put their life on the line. To go into the line of fire, you have Steve Scalise, Rodney Davis here that was on that baseball field.
What? It's such bad English. It's so terrible. I'll be honest, I enjoy watching Kevin McCarthy because it's just word salad all day long.
Why wouldn't we make that commitment to them? You have Rodney Davis, who offered legislation as the ranking member in the minority that the majority would never bring up, even though the IG reports and others said it needed.
He almost got there. He was so close to the end of that sentence.
Those questions going to be asked? Are we going to be back at this situation again in the future? 2 questions for this entire committee should be, why were we so ill-prepared for that day? And how can we make sure this never happens again? And that's what should drive the committee. There may be buildup before that day that you're going to have to investigate. Speaker Pelosi worked 6 months trying to make sure that would never happen. We had an officer killed on Good Friday, just across here, based upon, if you listen to who made the killing of buying the knife and go out, it was politically motivated, but we're not going to investigate that. You have the FBI doing investigations. You want to make sure nothing in this committee gets in the way of that. You have an architect of the Capitol that has been appropriated $10 million.
Okay, but you've given up your seats on the committee. These are all things that could be investigated or made sure not to interfere with the FBI investigation. By the way, that won't happen. In fact, any information gained the FBI can use, they will have access to it. You had guys who could be sitting on the committee
to make sure this is better prepared. Why wouldn't we then ask the tough questions and make sure the Capitol Police have the resources, the training?
He said the same thing about 40 times now.
And the equipment. That is what's being withheld, and that's what we complain about. Yes.
A week after the insurrection, you said that Trump was partially responsible for what happened. Do you still stand by that?
After the insurrection, you said President Trump was responsible for what happened. Do you still stand by that?
From a standpoint, I'm looking at all the investigation as we go forward. I would have liked response faster. Having known what I know today, that you just listened to Rodney Davis. Why would a sergeant of arms, when you have an insurrection going on, or protest out here, you got a line being broken, and you're the sergeant of arms, why would your first response be, I got to send a note to the speaker to see if it's okay if I can do my job to protect the men and women on the line? Why would...
Because that's the chain of command? That's your job? But that's what President Trump bears responsibility. Well, hold on. Somebody had to ask for someone to make a decision before something happened. Whoa. Well, then that takes all responsibility off the hitman.
Would that be your first reaction? Why?
Because it's your job.
I don't think any of us knew that. Do you realize that the sergeant of arms is being the leader?
Well, wait a minute. Davis sits on the administration committee. Why didn't he know that? He introduced bills to streamline the situation. Why didn't he know that?
Of the Republicans never talked to me prior coming up to the 16th, even though they knew on December 14th. How many meetings did they have with the Speaker's office for the preparation? He never passed me a note that day.
No, he doesn't have to pass you a note that day. You're not in the chain of command. You're irrelevant, Kevin McCarthy.
I would tell you, bring the National Guard.
Dear Kevin, suit looks good.
There are people out there who say there were phone calls to the Speaker that offered the National Guard prior to that day and was turned down.
There are people out there who say that, are there? That's interesting that no one seems to know who they are. But yeah, let's bring them in. Have yourself your own committee, or even better, accept the positions on the committee which you've been given.
Being turned down, and you have to ask the Speaker on the day of what was going on? Why wouldn't you do your job?
On the day of what was going on?
Why would you feel that in your job you couldn't make the decision? You were the officer. We have a sheriff for more than 30 years.
Well, again, you said that this was the chain of command. That's why you wouldn't feel that. That's how military situations, police situations happen. You have a series of orders ranking from top to bottom, and the orders have to come top down. That's how police officers work.
I promise you this.
Military and paramilitary organizations, they both work like that. Offices work like that. Families work like that. Dogs work like that.
In his capacity when he was sheriff, he did not think he had to call an elected official.
An elected official.
For anything for law enforcement that was going on.
He's laying into the sport reporter, too. If he was answering me, I would be correcting him as we went. And?
He knew his men and women were out there, and he needed to defend them. And he wanted to make sure they were prepared.
I need a press pass. I need a press pass at the Capitol. I need to interview. I need to ask Kevin McCarthy questions on a regular basis. Because I'll talk at him when he talks at me. If he talks at me like that, I will immediately snap back.
That's why we want people in questions like that asking. Yes?
One more question. I got to go.
A lot of people... Representative Armstrong said that by not allowing Jim Banks or Jim Jordan on the committee, they're silencing millions of Americans. But aren't by pulling all of your members from the committee, aren't you preventing those real legitimate questions?
Oh, good questions. The questions, somebody said, I don't know, I couldn't hear it, that by silencing Jim Jordan and Jim Banks, you're silencing millions of Americans. But aren't you, Kevin McCarthy, by pulling 3 members off the committee, silencing even more Americans?
And even if you think that the Democrats are being
No.
honest from counteracting some of those things.
No. What you want is the one thing we have in our government.
What you want is the one thing we have in our government.
You don't get 100% of what you want. You have to find compromise. This is the only situation in the history of a select committee by a speaker to try to predetermine what could be asked and what the results could take place. She has fought this for 6 months. At the same time,
what the results could take place. Well, the results could take place that I am now leaving for having to time hockey game. So I have to go, kids. And I think that's the end of it anyway, but we're not going to get any more information than we already have because we haven't gotten any information except that there are very important questions that absolutely need to be asked. It's critical for the American democracy that these questions be asked, but we're not going to ask them. Nope, we're not going to ask them. So that's it for tonight, guys. Thanks for joining me, those of you who've been with me all day as well. It's been lovely. We'll broadcast tomorrow. If there's hearings tomorrow, it might be a little bit delayed. I don't know when the hearings are going to be. If they're going to be, let's check. I do have to go. I have to go, guys, but let's just check, see tomorrow what's upcoming. Views from the House. Oh, okay. So this is January 6th. So this is 10 p.m. Eastern time. What? August 1st. Okay, so August 1st, it looks August 15th, August 1st. So maybe this is a weekly thing that they'll be doing. We'll look into it later. We'll figure it out, guys. Have yourself a great night. And I would definitely see you tomorrow, I think. I think we're good to do that. Otherwise, we'll see you another time. So be good to yourself, be good to others, and most importantly, be good to me.